So today is chapter 6 that we're talking about, though there may be something in previous content that also still caught your attention. And chapter 6 is about be like the frog. It's about adaptability. I almost threw the word flexibility in here as well, and yet I think there's some differences. So that being said, guys, it's always your room, even on a Monday morning when you guys are a little less than perky and fired up. So what do you guys have that we can share?
That was a pretty intense example that he started out with the boxer example, where we've got a guy who's well-trained, extremely well at execution, has a plan, goes into the fight, then he gets hit.
Yep. I've always heard that one that's in there because it's, using Mike Tyson as the example. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
And I like that he referenced that. And the military piece, though, of that is that, you have a plan until first contact with the enemy.
Right.
And then things change, things shift.
It's a fluid situation, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Kim, I saw that your mic was also jumping in early, so come on back in, Miss Kim.
Sorry about that. I was putting someone in the car. I guess my question would be, to start off, what's the difference between adaptability and flexibility?
Awesome. What do you guys think?
Adapting is to your environment. You're going to adapt to your environment by how different it is, and you can adapt to it and live within it, right? And then what was the other one? Flexibility. Flexibility is just being like, like some people would say, go with the flow. You're kind of just going, you're being flexible. You don't have to have it. It's not real rigid. You don't have to have a certain time. You don't have to have a certain day. You're flexible. You can work. You can be open.
Yeah,
so adaptability.
Hold on. I like where you're going with that, Carrie, that, flexibility, just go with the flow, and the outcome is not necessarily a piece of it. Whereas adaptability, we're still looking to get to the goal, yet we're changing based on what's happening in our environment. I mean, a great example right now, we have a lot of real estate agents who are flexible. They're getting out of the business because of all these changes and pressures and NAR settlements and changes in companies. And then we have a group that's adaptable that says, okay, this is the new rules of the game. How do we adjust what we're doing to succeed with those rules in the game? Client, you're up next.
Yeah, so adaptability is proactive. That's one of the main differentials that I get out of it. Adaptability is proactive because I am literally doing something to effect a said outcome that I wish to actually have happen. That's what I see. And in regards to the aspect of everyone has a plan until they get punched, the problem with that is that your opponent has a plan too. It wouldn't be a problem if the other side didn't have a plan. But when two people have a plan, that's where that crazy dance comes in. Those are my comments.
I appreciate that. And again, you'll see a lot of this going on in our industry right now where, people who are, quote, flexible they're making changes. They're changing industries. They're going into mortgage. They're not adding mortgage. Adaptable, I want another revenue stream. They're just, okay, I'm done with real estate. I'm headed here. And the adaptable agents are gobbling up market share. They're getting into the right activities. Josh, what do you got, my friend?
It was interesting. I was surprised they didn't use. We read a book a couple books ago that talked about different college football coaches becoming adaptable after halftime, and you might remember that. I can't remember which coach they referenced. You might remember Russ, but I was thinking through that, and flexibility means, in my opinion, you're adapting to that first punch in the mouth, whereas adaptability is you had a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, whether or not you got punched in the mouth. Because sometimes you want to adapt even if you're not forced to be flexible. And another thing my kids will tell you that I love that line. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. That is one of my all-time favorites. So I use that way too much. But and they kind of go back through that. If you do A, then I'll do B, then I'll do C. But you want to be able to have all of those plans thought out, I think, before the fight starts.
And I agree to a point with that, Josh, because you should have plans for all of the known inevitables. And yet, as we've experienced, especially in the examples of Navy SEALs and or wartime activity, once in a while, the battlefield changes into something you've never experienced. I mean, we take this NAR litigation. None of us who work in this industry thought that it was even possible that a jury would find in favor of the plaintiffs in that case. It just made no sense. And yet it happened. A couple other pieces here real quick from 68, 69. Adaptability is being able to adjust to any situation at any given time. So even those ones that we didn't expect, that we had no preparation for, rather than digging our heels, we're going to look for how do we still get to the goal. And one more piece he means on this is from 69, the ability to change tactics, expectations, and strategies as circumstances require. What else do you guys have?
On page 67, there's another one, Russ, that really stood out to me. It's at the top of the page. It says, what sets challengers apart from champions, though, is what happens after we get hit. It goes back to what you were just reading about adapting, new strategy, it's sort of like just continuing to stay in the fight. I was reading about another boxer, but he was a kickboxer, and he got in his first major title fight, and he was against the world champion for the first time. He'd come from nowhere, and he gets in the ring, and he lets the guy hit him. And then he's backing off, and he's got a bloody mouth, and he just kind of smiles, and he realizes that the guy can't hurt him. So he says, okay, it's time to go to work. And he just took that guy out. So the training that he had just made him so tough. He knew he wanted to know what kind of hit he was up against. So he just stepped into the first hit, got that over with, and then was ready to move.
Think about that as it relates to our real estate businesses as well and our negotiations. How many times should we maybe allow the other side or even request via question the other side to, quote, take the first shot? You know, it may very well get us to where we want to go, which again, I think is the big difference in this conversation. Adaptability still is striving towards the goal. And in some cases, unless it's not possible any longer. Again, back to the military, there are times where that adaptability retreat regroup. Jeanette, I see you're hot as well.
Well, going back to the interesting conversation about adaptability and flexibility. So the thought of, letting the potential client put out the first punch, if you will, asking where you think they want to price this at, then that gives you the flexibility to work with them. You have a plan already, and it shows you how you can be flexible in a case like that. And if they come out with something that you totally didn't expect, you can adapt to that circumstance with the other. If you have plan A, B, C, you have plans, you can adapt to whichever plan. but also having plans in place, A, B, C, and D. And if you need a G, you now have a framework within which you like to operate that can help you do the plan G much more. So those are some comparisons. A flexibility and something like that is almost more right in the very moment. It's like, you know what your flexibility is in the commission ranges or the price ranges that you want to be. Then you know exactly what to say.
There you go. Miss Kendra, I see your mic came up. What do you got, my dear?
So I guess I didn't realize it, but my strategy is, I guess, always let them take the first punch, because in the beginning I used to like give them the 3 different price points. Like, for example, the listing appointment I went on yesterday was like $275, $300, or $325. But before even giving them that, I straight up asked them, like, what's your, I'm going to keep your information confidential, but what's your bottom line? What are you absolutely, if I had 5 offers to present to you today, which one would you be like, absolutely no? And which one would you be like, absolutely yes? And then what's your most happiest scenario? And they were like, well, and I said, well, that way, and I cut them off. So, I said, well, that way I can tell you whatever number you're going to throw at me. I can either tell you, yes, that's doable, or no, you're crazy as hell and we need to readjust. And they laughed. But then, so we got to talking about it. And one of the objections, once they were like, all right, that's pretty cool. Once they got excited, I've noticed before in the past, once people get excited and they see that their first bottom line is doable, they want to push a little bit more. And I think that's usually the first punch in the face for me in the past that I wasn't prepared for. Whereas now we automatically jumped into, because then he's like, well, I want to double my money. That's the only way I'll be happy. And, he's having that aha moment. And, doubling his money would mean, like, it's, let's say they net 140,000. I said, all right, man. And luckily I helped represent him on the purchase. I said, but how much money did you walk into this house and purchase with? And we showed him, don't you remember the seller gave you this amount in closing costs? And he's like, yeah. I said, how much money did you walk in this house with in your hand? And he's like, oh, I only had enough for closing costs. I said, now multiply that by 2. Wouldn't you say you more than doubled your money? And he's like, yeah, all right. So then we jumped into commission and how much that was going to cost. And why selling at 300, you still might only walk away with X amount of dollars. And he's like, yeah, you know what? It's probably best if I don't even see all those itemized numbers. And we were sold. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're doing photos, we're listing, but he was able to accept, like, I don't want to see it because it's going to hurt my feelings. And we learned, like, yes, he's a numbers guy, but he just needs to know the bottom net line.
So think about this for a moment on this adaptability piece, and asking enough questions up front to really figure out the adaptability of your client. Wouldn't that be an incredible nugget to have up front as you are asking questions to see where they go? If the market changes, there's a circumstance change. Is the market a little volatile these days? Is what's going on politically creating even more uncertainty in everybody's life? And uncertainty drives volatility. So having a feel on, how they would adjust to market conditions, getting them talking about the market versus just talking about their desires, very well may help gauge that adaptability scale. Because if someone's strictly committed to their desires, I want X, with no adaptability in today's marketplace, if X is 10% above where the market is, how successful are they going to be? Yeah, not at all. And so that may be one instead that we let them know that we would rather let them go today than let them down tomorrow by not being able to meet their expectations. Who else has a nugget? Josh, you're back hot. Your picture isn't, but your mic is. Oh, well, now the mic isn't either. There you go. Who else?
I got a quick point too with I want to point out, like, there was a movie on Netflix where it was like a team of experienced Navy SEALs, I believe, going into a combat, and one unexperienced guy. They got into combat, and then the unexperienced guy's like, oh my gosh, Aaron is dead. And the other guy was like, I want you to hear, Aaron is dead. Focus on the combat, meaning being adaptable of whatever is going on. And it wasn't like he wasn't fearful. he just understood the situation and had to move forward. And then to putting to our situation, when anything happens in our deals, for example, like before closing or during the process, is very important for us to be adaptable and focus on the end goal, which is the client, and how can we solve those problems. So I thought those two, the courage one and adaptability, are so key to move forward. Even fearful, again, us being like, oh my gosh, our deal's not going to close, which is the fear, but like the courage is to continue to move forward. So I thought that was very important, and it just tied into like the little movie that I saw that I didn't even finish because it wasn't all that good, but it was like a cool scene.
Well, also, Cesar, I just want to say thank you for tying adaptability into courage, because these all fall into that grit section of the attributes. We're still in that piece, and this is having that adaptability is just a chunk of it. So who else? We got 10 more minutes. What do you guys have? You're real estate agents. You love to hear yourselves talk. Let's go. Kim, I see you're back on.
I have a question for everyone. Where does adaptability show up in your life, and when did it show up?
With pain and sacrifices.
Every day. Every day.
Well, when the shit goes down.
Okay, you guys can all go a little deeper than that.
How are you guys being adaptable in your business as we speak? Like, what changes are you actually utilizing adaptability at a high level right now?
I made a adaptation last week. I have a friend, client, and person who had worked for me in the past making calls, and we had an outstanding deal. I had a floor installed in her place or whatever, and I called and said, hey, how would you like to make some attraction calls? And gave her our old script from like a year ago, pointed her in a town or direction. She set up four appointments for me for this week. And it would have been the easiest thing to do would have been to just let that, deal and whatever sit out there. So that is good use of leverage too.
Well, think about that leverage piece, Justin. Thanks for bringing that in, because I can't tell you how many agents that I have had in and around my world that have followed the model of recruiting and building a team only to have it implode because it wasn't done right. And then from that point on, I'm never hiring anybody again. They dig their heels in that, gosh darn it, it wasn't them, it was what else was going on. And they aren't willing to be that flexible. I want to get in bottom of page 70 here, which might help facilitate some more conversation on individuals, teams, and this adaptability, unadaptability scale and how to recognize it. How well an individual or a team recognizes and interprets a shifting environment or situation and makes the necessary adjustments suggests their level of adaptability. If they do so with speed and enthusiasm, they're likely pretty high on the scale. On the other hand, if you find yourself resisting, making changes more slowly and begrudgingly in uncomfortable and unpredictable situations, your innate adaptability probably registers on the low end of the scale.
So
I'll put this, hold on one sec, because I want to put one nugget on this and I'm coming right to you. I want to put this in simplest terms. When the world shifts, when crap comes at you, are you having fun? Are you enjoying it? Are you leaning into it? Or are you getting cranky, upset, frustrated, and beginning to point? Ryan, go.
Question I have as far as adaptability in real estate business, open houses is one lead generation source for a lot of agents. 2021, 2022, we were seeing groups anywhere between on a slow weekend, 8 on 8 groups through an open house to 25 to 30 through an open house of groups, not total people. At the start of this spring, we were seeing right between 5 and 8 groups. So we were like, okay, traffic's been decent. July hit, and it has been like, if you have 1 or 2 people in an open house, how are you guys being adaptable with your open house strategies?
So based on what Ryan's saying, the numbers are down. The organic people out looking are down. What are you doing to adjust for it? Josh, I see the mic's hot, and then Kim, I'm coming to you.
I didn't mean it to be hot. I apologize. I had a call come in that I had to take.
So do you have anything on the topic at hand since I got you? This is an opportunity to show your adaptability, Josh.
Yes, very adaptable. It's funny. I heard you saying that organic traffic was down. I could use a down day or two because my world's been crazy. So I am having to adapt in a good way, like juggle. And I don't know how to juggle as well as I thought I did, but I am figuring out as I go.
Awesome. And then we'll get into some fun things here that we may even have some disagreements on in future chapters. Kim, you're next up.
I would.
Open houses.
Kim, then Kendra. I got you both, and then Carrie. I got 3 Ks in a row. Look at this.
Answering Ryan's question about open houses, I used to start marketing my open houses haphazardly on a Thursday or a Friday for a Saturday, Sunday. I now have committed to a 2-day open house that's probably going to change into a 3-day open house. And I market it 5 to 7 days beforehand.
Okay. So putting together a marketing strategy, a sales strategy, a plan to fill the open houses. Awesome. Yes. Kendra, you're next up.
I agree. I was just going to go a little bit more detailed in answering that question and adding to that marketing plan. I think if my numbers were down, then, or if I could see that they were going to be down, then I would start that 5 days ahead. But I would, in my area, you have to get a door knocking $25 permit now. But I would door knock around the neighbors and then maybe mail letters to neighbors, call your sphere, invite them. You just got to get really detailed and intentional and invite people and create an event of it. I remember one year having a neighborhood yard sale and then planning the open house around that. And one thing that someone else told me was like, if you don't have time to get like the door knocking permit on those Saturday mornings, maybe in advance, you go talk to the people who are already outside in a neighborhood, cutting their grass, walking, just in their yard.
Well, let's have a little more fun with this because I love this adaptability piece. I love this on open houses, and I love this about this whole permit licensing stuff that shows up. If you were throwing a party, let's say you were doing a new to the neighborhood, somebody shows up, and for that client, you were having a party on their behalf. Would you have to get a permit to knock the neighbors and invite them to a party?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So instead of just doing an open house, why don't we do open house parties?
I've done that before. Yes. I would list on a Wednesday. I would sign them on a Wednesday. And then Thursday, the photographer would come through. I'd have the photos, by Friday and go live by Friday. And then we would do a Friday night open house from 4 to 7. And I would go to the dollar store and get champagne glasses and serve champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And then I'd invite all the agents to come through on Saturday and Sundays. And no offers were considered until like Monday or Tuesday. That's when the market was hot.
Here's a model to adapt to market conditions, which is what we get to do in here is brainstorm on them. Carrie, you were next, then Celeste, you're next.
I was just going to say that I do a lot of open houses and I try to be flexible, but I don't think I've been able to adapt to new ways to do an open house, and I need them.
Awesome. And I appreciate that integrity and that vulnerability. That shows coachability, and that's going to be a key of you making these changes to your attributes. Folks that aren't willing to acknowledge it, they get stuck in their patterns, and that's how they go the rest of their world. Great job, Carrie. Celeste, what do you got?
I did one where I contacted a mortgage lender and I said, I'd like them to create CDs with the photos of the property. And then they made up, I asked them to make 250. We mailed them out to the neighborhood, and the theme was pick your neighbor. And the volume of people in the neighborhood who showed up to look at the property, to be able to pick the home for their friends, their neighbors, it was outstanding. And even my client was like, I've never seen anyone do that before. I said, well, I don't know anyone that's done it either, but I figured your home looks so nice, it was worth doing. And we sold it. And she said, I've just never seen anyone take so much effort to get my home exposed.
Amen. So Ryan, I'm coming to you next. I just want to change one more thought process on adaptability and thinking differently. What's the purpose of an open house?
Get new clients.
Get new clients. I hear that, and people talk about new buyers. I hear people say sell the house. The true purpose of an open house done right is to get more listings.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Ryan, close us out.
So I'm going to come back to this because what I'm hearing is from what has been working. Okay. The market's changed drastically in the last month, and I don't hear what's been like when the market changes drastically like that. We gotta find another way to be able to adapt quickly. So when the market was good in 2021, 2022, and rates were low and everyone was looking, yeah, it was great. We were doing great with open houses. We were doing great in the spring when it was 5 to 8, doing well and doing all the marketing like what I've been hearing. But when the market changes and the people aren't out, what else do we need to do? And that's what I'm asking is like going above and beyond. I totally get it. What are they?
Absolutely. And so there's a good brainstorming session for us in future rooms.